going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, the May 12th, 2025 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. If you will all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, second item, roll call.
Yeah, actually, all the board members are here. We have a quorum, but I'd like to do some oaths.
Okay.
Do you want to do them together or do them
Sure,
separately?
do we just repeat all of this or just say we agree?
Yeah, no, we'll say it.
Okay.
You maybe stand and raise your hand. I state your name.
I, Paula Noble,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess all the qualifications
that I possess all the qualifications
of the Office of Planning Commissioner
of the Office of Planning
in the
Commissioner
state of Missouri,
and of the state of Missouri,
provisions of all laws
the provisions of all
of
laws
this state
of this state
affecting cities of this class
affecting cities of this class
and the ordinances of the city of Kearney, Missouri,
and the ordinance of the city of Kearney, Missouri,
and faithfully demean myself in office.
and faithfully demean myself in
So
office.
help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you. And please sign and submit those to me. Are you ready to proceed?
All right, consent agenda. Any comments, discussion?
Just the minutes of last month's meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Do we need to approve them? Okay, I got some. Aren't you glad you just swore me in again? All right. I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Great. New business. 4A, backyard chickens, and this is a public meeting.
Yes, this will be a public hearing tonight.
Yep.
Yeah, so if you remember about a year ago, a little over a year ago, Planning and Zoning Commission considered a backyard chicken ordinance. And the night of the most recent meeting, we had 6 members here, and it was kind of a split house. There was a motion to approve an ordinance, it was split 3-3, and then a motion to deny. I might have that flipped 3-3. And so there was really no formal recommendation that could go to the Board of Aldermen. So nothing really has happened since then. We have some new board members at the Board of Aldermen, and they asked at a March meeting if the Planning and Zoning Commission can bring back an ordinance and reconsider and submit a recommendation to them. And so that's what is in your packet today. You'll notice that language is probably fairly similar to what it was last time, but there are some key changes, and I want to point those out to you. One, it would add a new section in the animal regulation section of the municipal code and not the zoning ordinance. We thought that might be appropriate. It's kind of a major change, I guess, moving from one section to another. And technically, I think, being under the animal codes, it's more of the realm of the Board of Aldermen and not just Planning and Zoning Commission. But we did post notice for tonight, thinking we kind of made that change in the last couple of weeks. So we did post notice, and it's still, I think, an okay deal to accept public comment, open a public hearing, accept comment, and then that can be shared with the board next week. We removed the need for a permit requirement. We removed the minimum lot size requirement. The previous version had a half-acre minimum lot size, and there just aren't very many lots of that size in the city, and so we really only benefit a few people, so we thought to remove that. Also reduce the minimum setbacks from side and rear yard property lines to 15 feet from 20 feet. The reason for that is because we approved the R1B zoning classification at one of the recent meetings. And so a 60-foot wide lot is 15 feet narrower, so we thought it made sense to maybe reduce that just a little bit. And then we identified the need in there to not create a nuisance condition, kind of a reminder to whoever might have chickens. You've got to maintain them. You've got to keep it clean and tidy so as not to attract vermin, smell, things like that. And And that's kind of the end of it. It was my presentation. There is a public hearing scheduled, so you want to open up the floor. We do have someone in the audience, and I do have an email that was sent to me. I provided copies to all of you, and I'd be happy to read that in the meeting so that it gets entered into the record also.
Thank you. All right. Open the public meeting. It looked like you signed in earlier, so if you want to come up and state your name, address, and.
All right. Sorry, I made little notes. So I'm Emily Porter. We live at 2102 Foxtail Drive. So we just actually moved here just before Thanksgiving, so we're new. So I appreciate the little background information on the chickens. I apologize. This is like probably something you probably don't want to hear about anymore. But we recently moved here. I didn't know we weren't allowed to have chickens, so I saw it on Facebook. So I'm just here to respectfully request a change to the current regulations. We specifically picked a larger lot so we could have a few chickens. I mean, we have little kids, so we think it's a great learning opportunity for them to take care of something and kind of take ownership of that. Just listening to the things that were shared, I think those are reasonable rules to have, because there should probably be limitations in place for having chickens in the backyard. I understand like maybe not wanting to have roosters or like the lot being in certain places away from the fence. Yeah, I just think with careful consideration, maybe following some of the surrounding cities and some of the things that they've done. I know like Liberty has some regulations, but does allow chickens within those limitations. But I think with careful consideration, it would be a great change to make, and I know it would benefit my family. So thank you.
Thank you. And it doesn't look like there's anybody online.
No, there's nobody online, but can I?
Yep.
I can read that. So this was submitted by Sean Warfield, who is a resident of the city. It said, "Hi David, I heard the P&Z agenda tomorrow consists," so this was emailed yesterday afternoon, "consists of talking about having chickens in the city limits. I would like to share that I'm strongly against having chickens in the city limits. I don't want the smell, the noise, or the predators that chickens will bring. We have plenty of farmland surrounding Kearney for those who want to raise farm animals. If you could please share this email with other P&Z members prior to tomorrow's meeting, I would appreciate it." Sean Warfield, okay, she has our address, 2210 Prairie Creek Drive.
I'm going to close the public meeting. Sure. All right. Board discussion, questions?
Well, my opinion has not changed in a year, and that probably doesn't surprise anybody here. And the changes that were made, I got a question or concern. Why did we remove a permit requirement?
Well, one, so that we had a change that was, I would say twofold. A major change to the proposed code so that it could be brought back to the Board of Aldermen. And then two, it would take a lot of work from cities. We have an animal control / code enforcement person. It would take a lot of work monitoring permits and getting annual permits. And so we thought that maybe just handling as a nuisance condition like a code enforcement issue would be the way to go. I did have conversation with Smithville, a representative from Smithville, who said they do allow chickens and they spend a lot of time trying to deal with permitting and enforcement of that.
Because people aren't following the permit requirements?
Or they get the initial permit and then they don't follow up and do the follow-up permits. Or they don't know about the permits.
So I know on the original time that this came around to the board, there was lots of talk about other municipalities and their regulations. And if I remember right, that's partly where the lot size came from and where the permit requirement came from. Is that correct?
The permit requirement, yes, so Smithville requires a permit, City of Liberty requires a permit. I can't remember a few of the others. The lot size requirement, I think that came from other previous discussions from board members who had some concerns about maybe having chickens on all lots and or really small lots where they may not be appropriate.
Right. My opinion is, roosters are the ones that make the noise. But hens and roosters make the smell. And so having chickens, and we've got chickens in town already. Anybody that says we don't, doesn't drive around town. But having chickens on a newly created R1B lot doesn't seem feasible. I mean, if our lot's only 60 foot wide, and, you know, that's the purpose of the R1B, was to create more density. And now you're saying, okay, we're gonna create more density, but we're gonna allow chickens in that higher density. And so,
Plus, they're gonna be closer
exactly, yes,
to the adjoining lots.
right.
So,
And I remember that the discussion before was that the larger lots, you know, you had at least some separation from the your neighbors. And I think even at one time, we talked about an acre or more, didn't we?
Well, it was half an acre the last time.
Okay.
Which I think we determined was not very many houses at all.
It'd be more, you know, like the ends of cul-de-sacs where you have the angled lots.
Or a corner lot.
Yeah, corner lot, yeah. Some of the older parts of town might have some larger lots, like Prospect Street, some of those.
I live on a corner lot, I've got over half an acre, but the last thing I'd want is chickens. Because I've got a neighbor here and a neighbor there. And I already have critters running around my neighborhood, and if I introduce chickens, I'm gonna have more critters. So my opinion is we need to go back to the bare lots and get back to the permits, even if we're even gonna consider it.
So I'm on the other side of it. You know, just doing some quick research. You need about 10 square feet of lot space per chicken. The issues that I have with the ordinance that's presented with us is that 3 chickens is not enough. You need 4 to 6 chickens to feed a family of 4 to keep them up with the eggs. So the 3 is almost allowing it, but regulating it out of existence. 3 is enough to say we allow it, but not enough to actually be useful. So I'd like to see it get up to that 6 per lot. And then the other issue that I have is just kind of more of maybe a clarification on the paragraph 4, commercial use prohibited. I understand not turn it into a commercial business, but you say if I have extra eggs, I'm not allowed to sell them off to my neighbors, similar to like tomatoes I grow or anything like that? Is that gonna prohibit all that?
Technically, yes. Basically, the idea is that you're not to raise the chickens for commercial venture. It's for you to have the eggs that you're raising.
I think with the limiting of the numbers of chickens, we'll take care of that self. You know, you're not gonna produce enough eggs from 3 to 6 chickens to be a commercial venture. So I would like to see the selling of the eggs straight through. I get not raising them for the meat. You know, again, the limited number of chickens that you can have at any one given time will kind of regulate that. But it's a good clause to have in there, but I would like to be able to, maybe if I had extra eggs, sell them off similar to extra produce that I make in my garden.
So leave the section, just remove the selling of eggs.
For what it's worth, I actually really like that, and I think usually if my neighbors have extra tomatoes, they just give them to me because they're extra tomatoes.
I give them away, but
So if you have extra eggs from your 3 to 6 chickens or whatever, you don't need to sell them. I thought the reason people are having chickens in their backyard, right?
well, that's not the hill I want to die on.
It's gonna cost, right, it's gonna cost, I mean,
You spend a lot of money on cheap chickens or cheap eggs.
Yeah, I mean, that's not why you have chickens. You have chickens for other reasons, not to feed your family to save a bunch of money. Because honestly, by the time you house them and feed them and do all the things that are needed to properly care for them, I don't know. I like the commercial requirement personally.
It's not the hill I want to die on, so I just would like to open it up. But the biggest thing was just the 3, that's not enough. If we're gonna do it, let's do it.
I would agree. I mean, everything you read, family of 4, 4 to 6. Smell, it's not an issue. As long as they're well taken care of. If they're not, they're a nuisance. We have the means to eliminate it. I just finished taking care of 10 chickens. They didn't smell at all. They don't really make any noise. They're not mine. They are in the city.
And I kind of figure with
And with 10 chickens in 3 days, 4 days, 3 or 4 days, I got a dozen eggs. So you can see that 3 chickens, you're not gonna get a lot of eggs. So it's that 4 to 6 number is about right. And in the wintertime, it's worse.
if we're gonna have smell with 3 chickens, we're gonna have smell with, if they're gonna be smelly and someone's not gonna take care of them, it's not gonna be a huge difference between 3 and 6.
And honestly, if you open it up to 3, a family of 4 is gonna have 6. And you're never gonna know about it until it's a nuisance, and somebody reports it.
I mean, obviously, we already have chickens
We
in
have
town.
lots of chickens.
Yeah, I have never seen them, but I believe you. Obviously, this came up last year
Yep,
as well.
And I would say if you've never seen them,
they're not,
that speaks volumes.
it does.
They're out there.
I mean, have we received any complaints via the animal control about chickens?
Fairly recently, we had I think we did hear one pretty recently, but this ordinance was on, and so we were just kind of holding off
To
until.
quantify that complaint, was it a complaint that there were just the
That there
presence
were
of chickens, not a presence of a nuisance because of chickens?
No, just that somebody
Just
had
that they were
chickens.
there.
Yeah, they know that we have an ordinance against chickens, so they called about chickens, but it's been recent enough that we haven't sent a code letter yet, because if we change the code, then you can have chickens back potentially, so.
So maybe I just need to understand what you guys are thinking. I am not necessarily opposed to chickens, like 4, 5, 6, whatever, that small amount is not horrible. But in my case, I have a hunting dog that I've spent a ton of money on, and that dog is not gonna like chickens. So she spends her daytime in the kennel outdoors, so she's contained. However, if my neighbor has chickens, my dog is gonna bark, and my dog is gonna bark all day long at those chickens. Now, maybe that neighbor doesn't call the city and say my dog is making too much noise, but 2 neighbors down the street goes, hey, I've listened to this dog bark all day long. Is that now my problem? Or is that the lady with the chickens? Is it their problem? So I don't want us to allowing more things in the city causing more issues. Does that make sense?
Perfect.
So I don't know what the right answer is for that. I mean, like I said, I'm not opposed to chickens on their own. I'm just thinking specifically of myself at this point. And I'm not sure that there's,
It's a scenario.
well,
It may
it's not, just because she's a hunting dog, there are tons of dogs in this community that are
My
gonna,
little dog would bark all day long.
yeah. And so,
Every time she goes outside.
because I've dealt with the dog barking thing in the past, I know what kind of can happen, and that's why I don't think we should punish owners of pets because they don't like the chickens. So how does the city deal with that? So that's my question to you.
Probably the complaint is incessant barking, and so then that becomes the nuisance.
But it says that the hens shall not create a nuisance, so
Good question.
I could make a question, I could make it,
The public nuisance wouldn't be created by the chickens, because their presence isn't a nuisance. The public nuisance would be the dog barking.
But because somebody's got chickens, are you gonna tell the next door neighbor that the dog, you've got to get rid of your dog?
I'm not saying to get rid of the dog. I'm very much a property rights guy. Every property owner is entitled to the highest and best use of their property. And because you can't control your dog's barking doesn't mean I should have to not be able to utilize my property to its fullest extent. And if that means I want chickens, means you need to control your dog on your property.
I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah.
There's not been a problem. Then chickens are introduced. There becomes a problem, which was no fault of the person that had the dog. And you're way above my pay grade on what you do for a living, so I'm just a guy that used to sell groceries and lives in a town that I want to be the best it can be, and the way it's been good for me for 50 years. And I just don't think that in this case, I'm probably totally wrong. But
Agree to disagree and on that one, but like I said, I'm very much, I could get a cat and cause the same issue. I could have a Yorkie dog that causes the same issue. It is up to me as a dog owner to control my dog. Whether that's a chicken or a coyote making that dog, or a cat or a raccoon making my dog bark. It's my responsibility to control my dog on my property.
So question, by making this an animal regulation code, what we're doing here is deciding whether or not the Board of Aldermen gets to decide if we have chickens.
There'll be a recommendation for planning and zoning going to the Board of Aldermen.
About whether or
And the
not
board
we
will
should
still,
have.
the board will still consider an ordinance.
So even if we decide to not recommend it, they could still decide they could still
Sure.
decide their chicken. I'm just getting a lay of the land. I have similar concerns about the barking. I know people that want chickens, and I know people that really don't want chickens. There's part of living in a town. I have friends that have chickens. They don't live in Kearney, though. They live in Gladstone. I'm just as on the fence as I was before, but I'm not opposed to being 6 chickens instead of, if we're going to do chickens, it might as well be 6 chickens. I do like the idea of a slightly, maybe it's not, whatever the new lot size is, maybe we just say it has to be that next size up, which has a lot of variability and isn't half an acre. Forget what that one was, but R1.
Well, R1 minimum lot size is 8,250 square feet.
Can we say that we think that should be so it doesn't go on R whatever?
Could, yeah, the board could. That could be a recommendation.
I mean, I would get on board with that. I don't want to set it so high that it precludes everybody.
Yeah, I don't think a half an acre.
And what we can always do is reevaluate. If it's, becomes an issue, we can always reevaluate.
Yeah, the minimum lot size is probably just under a quarter of an acre, when you do the math.
It's what everything is right now until something gets built on the new lot sizes.
We just set it at a quarter of an acre and that wouldn't get anything. Because even if, say, something does get rezoned to the new lot size, but that particular lot is a half acre, right? Those new lot sizes are only minimums, so someone can come in and take a couple weird pieces that, don't split up real well, but still have over that quarter acre. So I wouldn't tie it to a district, I'd tie it to a lot size. And that gives the most flexibility across the board.
I feel like I'm not opposed to chickens, but I want to understand that nuisance thing better. I feel like we grandfather things in all the time. So, if you look at it that way, then the dogs are grandfathered in and the chickens are are the issue, but I think I just don't want to cause problems for the people who are already existing here, who have followed all the rules and done all the things they're supposed to do, and now all of a sudden, everything changes and they're the ones that have to make the change. I don't think it's going to be a huge, I don't think it's going to be a huge issue, but I think as a city, we need to understand how we're going to deal with that before. I don't really want to make a recommendation until I understand how the city's going to deal with that.
There was a recent state law change. Can you explain? That was just for HOAs, correct?
Yeah, it's for HOAs, and the HOAs can't restrict chickens. I think they can establish some criteria. The criteria also, though, includes 6 chickens. They can't restrict to less, I think, allow up to 6 chickens. They can't make it less than the 6. I think, not less than 6, not?
Yeah, it's 6.
Yeah, there's a 6 number.
It's always a good idea to mirror state law as well, so that's kind of.
But it does deal with homeowners associations. With the 6, allowing up to 6 chickens would be consistent with what that law is.
Right.
The solar panel lobby, same as that solar panel,
Yeah.
the HOA does
It
it.
actually got dumped onto the same law.
Oh,
I assume it eventually would go the way of the solar panels or cell phone towers, someone will come in and preempt us. So it's a slow turn that way.
Yeah, I copied it, so I can read it. This act provides that no deed restriction covenant or similar binding agreement running with the land shall prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting ownership or pasturing of up to 6 chickens on a lot that is 2/10 of an acre or larger, including prohibitions against a single chicken coop designed to accommodate up to 6 chickens. So the lot size that you're talking about,
it's
that's
about a
similar.
quarter of an
It's
acre,
similar,
2/10, yeah.
number is similar.
But the state law, so the state law hasn't come in and overrode cities, just
Correct.
HOAs.
Right.
Well, I don't have any more. Anybody else have any comments, questions? Anybody want to make a motion of any kind?
So I'll make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval, amending the number of chickens from 3 to 6,
So,
and setting the minimum lot size to a quarter.
okay, so as presented, but we have changes to add 6 chickens. And minimum lot size of 0.25 acres.
Second.
Can we have a discussion? Can I ask, obviously, if we're gonna vote for it, that's fine, but before it goes to the board, can you present to them the nuisance issue, or David, can you talk to the board about that? Because that's really what's holding me back. That's really the concern, is that I'm afraid it's gonna cause problems between neighbors.
Right.
So that's my concern.
Okay. So, gave a comment, I think I'd probably ask the city attorney maybe to provide a comment.
Yeah, so it'd be good to
See if we can get a comment there
Patrick's.
before the meeting.
Yeah.
Any other comments before I call for the vote?
So what you're talking about is that, as if this passes, then you're asking for an opinion after we recommend it. Is that what you're saying?
That's what David had talked about, was getting a legal opinion on the nuisance part of it, yes.
Because we're just
City attorney.
recommending it, so it's not does not go into effect unless the board,
I understand that.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like the car dealership down here.
yeah, so unless you're just saying you want the board to then also consider.
I want them
the
to
nuisance law.
consider that as they make their decision. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I want them to make sure that they understand that there's that issue that I'm concerned about.
I don't want them to have the opportunity.
I don't know that we can hold it. We can recommend approval, recommend denial, we can hold it and they can pull it forward.
I know,
They're gonna make the decision with or without us, so
I understand that.
the best course of action is to up or down and moving on.
All right, so Brad's ready for me to call for the vote. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So I think the ayes carried it, or yeah,
Yeah, 4-2.
yep. All right,
I guess my eye was a nay, actually.
for B, cottages at Cottonwood Creek, a replat of Outlot 1, Cottonwood Creek, 4th plat, final plat.
Yep, so Craig Porter, representing CHP Construction LLC and Deer Valley LLC. Actually, tonight, Ron Calgar, who was representing the applicant, submitted the cottages at Cottonwood Creek replat of Outlot 1 final plat. That's a final plat that will update the building setbacks at the cottages at Cottonwood Creek. So we had an RP2 plan that came through a couple of months ago that was approved for 9 single-family dwelling units, villa lots, Cottonwood Creek Drive and Nation Road. And so it had commercial setbacks as part of the rezoning plan. They were to amend those setbacks, and so this plat will do that amendment. Also, there's a sanitary sewer line extension that will be constructed through the property to provide access to the houses. That will be included on the plat, and then they added an extra utility easement for other utilities also. Homeowners will own the footprint of the houses, and the remaining property will be owned and maintained by an association, just like was explained at the previous meeting. And what we'll see is there'll be some lot split surveys that will be submitted for staff review when they build the houses, and then that is the document that will get recorded that then they can sell each unit to whoever's going to purchase those houses. Staff recommends approval of the final plat with the following conditions. 1, submit a revised plat if necessary. 2, city engineer approval of final plat revisions and any changes, modifications, or alterations required by the same to the final plat revisions. That's Patrick language, which is essentially, there may be some final revisions that need to be made to the drawing that allows that to happen. 3, record the covenants and restrictions document with the final plat. So there was some covenants and restrictions submitted with rezoning plan that they'll need to record that creates the association. Record the final plat within 1 year of alderman approval and develop a site in compliance with all city codes, conditions, requirements, plans, and payments of fees and taxes. Then this will be submitted to the Board of Aldermen for their consideration next week. Board has questions, I'm available, or Ron is in the audience.
Comments, questions?
This is just continuation of the stuff we've already moved on, so.
Yeah. All right, well, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
You have to do the motion.
I don't have it in version.
You want me to do it?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend the Board of Aldermen approve the cottages of Cottonwood Creek of Outlot 1 final plat with conditions as recommended by staff.
I'll second.
All in favor, any comments or discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Carries. 4C, oh, make this all big. Shops at Kearney replat of Lot 3E, final plat. Let's
Again.
go with the next one too.
It's related to the next
Yeah.
item, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so This is Dan McGee with Lamper and Earson's in the audience tonight representing the applicant. Atlas Land Consulting is a surveyor that prepared the application. Property owner is Star Acquisitions. They submitted the Shops at Kearney first plat, replat of Lot 3E final plat. So the area of this final plat is west side of Watson Drive, south of Club Car Wash, north of Holiday Inn. It's a large, almost 5-acre property. This would split that area into 3 different commercial lots. And then the application later, the site plan is for the middle of those lots. It's currently known as Shops at Kearney first plat lot 3E. So they'll split the 3, get rid of the E, and then there'll be F, G, and H are the lot numbers or lot letters, if you want to call it that. Properties, as I mentioned, is located along the west side of Watson Drive, south of Club Car Wash. No public improvements are proposed as part of the final plat. The plat does include a new 10-foot wide general utility easement between the southern 2 lots. And then there's an access easement proposed between Lot 3F, the north lot, and Lot 3G, the south lot, for a shared driveway. So we have one driveway and then they have shared access. Accompanying site plan was submitted proposing construction of new commercial building associated improvements on that middle lot, like I mentioned earlier. Staff recommends approval of the Shops at Kearney replat of Lot 3E final plat with following conditions. 1, submit a revised plat if necessary. 2, city engineer approval of final plat revisions and any changes, modifications, or alterations required by the same to the final plat revisions. Record the final plat within 1 year of Alderman approval. 4, develop the site in compliance with all city codes, conditions, requirements, plans, and payment of fees and taxes. There are 4 conditions. This one, the previous one had 5, but that had to do with the covenants and restrictions. This one does not have that because the covenants and restrictions for the shops already applies to property. The final plat will be forwarded to the Board of Aldermen at their meeting for consideration next week. Staff recommends approval, and Dan McGee is in the audience on this one. Ron was the design engineer for the overall shops, but not this plan.
The only question I have is for proposed lot 3F, if we split it as proposed, that's kind of a narrower lot. What do we foresee potentially going out there? I mean, it really kind of limits what we can put on that lot.
On the, the one between Club Car Wash, fairly similar layout. We actually had, there was a use that was considering going there, but I can't remember what it was. And it was kind of a narrower, you have the customer area to the front, and then you have a longer building that faces, the south or the north. Club Car Wash is another one of those. It's kind of a long, narrower building.
Was it an auto parts store?
Something auto related.
Yeah.
I think that lot size is comparable to,
Yeah, I mean,
comparable to
there's
the,
9 feet width difference between F and G.
There's what?
yeah,
Just 9 feet.
Yeah, 1.32 acres versus 1.37 acres.
I mean, one's 153 feet wide, the other one's 162.
Okay. Nope, we're good.
On the little, that one, it looks real narrow, actually, the one there, yeah, but
When I was looking, it's
On page 16.
33 feet difference, but we can still shoot more stuff on there. I just wanted to bring it up. That's all I had.
Any other comments, questions?
Is there an estimate on sales tax revenue?
This is just the final plat, so.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
This
that
would be
maybe
the
the
next-
question is more
the next-
with a site plan.
Okay, yeah.
Is that what the next item is, the site plan? Okay, well then we can go with the final plat part and entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend the Board of Aldermen approve the Shops at Kearney replat of Lot 3E final plat with conditions as recommended by staff.
Second.
Any other comments or discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, site plan.
Site plan. So Shops at Kearney Lot 3G, or the soon-to-be Lot 3G. We have a site plan from Les Schwab Tire Centers to locate on that property. They're represented by Dan McGee, who's in the audience. Les Schwab Tire Centers is not really from our area. They're Oregon, California. I think there's some north, like North Dakota, maybe Nebraska.
The closest is Vermillion, South Dakota.
Okay, and they're expanding and they're coming into the Kansas City area, and they have actually gone maybe through or working through some site plans on a couple of other communities. So we're one of the first ones in the Kansas City area that they're looking at. They propose to construct a 9,872 square foot building with related improvements, parking lot essentially, on Lot 3G in the shop. Site's located on west side of Watson Drive, south of Club Car Wash and north of Holiday Inn Express. Building includes a customer service area fronting Watson Drive. I'm very articulate when I talk about building improvements and things like that. So there are some photos in the packet where you can see maybe what we're talking about. So the customer service area includes some windows and stone veneer, wainscot, and a canopy element that wraps kind of around the front corner of the building and above the entrance. That customer service area will face Watson Drive, and then facing the northeast towards Club Car Wash, they'll have 7 bays for vehicles, so they do, change tires. They have a sales area and a customer service where they can sell the tires to and do everything for you. So that would be considered a sales tax generator. There is a requirement in the shop that at least 80% of the leasable space has to be sales tax generator, grocery store, hotel, a little bit of language. I included that language. Every time we have a site plan in the shops, I keep that paragraph in there and we just update it. And when we add this, we did a little visit. Papa Murphy's, I think, is leaving. So that it removes some of that because it's considered vacant space, but this adds back into it. So we're over the 80% threshold with this proposed business. Building materials include precast concrete. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked. Building materials include precast concrete panels in a couple of different textures and colors. The developers reviewed and approved the design too, so that's good to know. Access to the site includes a shared driveway along Watson Drive with a lot to the northeast. At the back of the parking lot, they'll have a stub so that you can enter the lot to the south when it develops. We always want to have some cross access so you don't have to get back out onto Watson Drive or the main street to go next door and visit the next door. There's existing water and sewer available to the site. There are detention basins that serve the development. So there's a detention basin on the north side of Club Car Wash, so the north portion of the site drains that way. Southern portion of the site drains along Watson Drive that leads into the basin in front of Price Chopper. Parking spaces include 31 spaces plus 2 ADA spaces, which 2 ADA spaces on that size lot is code compliant. There'll be a sidewalk that they'll construct along Watson Drive with a pedestrian connection up to the building. Parking lot light poles and exterior building lighting are shielded to direct light down and not out. They have 3 poles in the parking lot, and they're the LDD, so they're flat. So I guess if you're driving under them, they're really bright. If you're level with them, that's really attractive. Staff recommends approval of Shops at Kearney Lot 3G Schwab Tire Center site plan with the following conditions. 1, submit revised drawings if necessary. 2, city engineer approval of site plan revisions and any changes, modifications, or alterations required by the same to the site plan revisions. Submit a copy of the DNR land disturbance permit if required. Install and maintain sediment and erosion controls throughout construction. Install a key box if required by Kearney Fire and Rescue Protection District, which they do on all commercial buildings. Submit a building permit application prior to construction. Submit a sign permit application prior to sign installation. Really didn't hit on signs. They've got some wall signs that are less than the 10% threshold. And then they have a monument sign out front that they identified would be no taller than 77.5 feet, which is code compliant. As long as the square footage is 50 square feet or less, that would do a sign permit to cover that. And then develop the project in compliance with all codes, conditions, requirements, plans, and payment of fees and taxes. And then this also goes forward to the Board of Aldermen for their consideration. Dan McGee is with Lamp Anderson is in the audience representing the applicant on this one. familiar with the Lamprey Nearson name, they are usually the city's consulting engineer. Les Schwab contacted them to handle their things at Kansas City, and so it's kind of the opposite. They're on the side of the applicant, and then we have a different on-call engineer that we've used to review this application.
Is this a full-service automobile shop?
Dan, maybe
Yes.
answer for tires.
Yeah, so Dan McGee, Lamprey Nearson. So this is basically tire service or services that can be performed in 2 hours. So they'll do tires, brakes, shocks, alignment,
Something like Big O?
similar. They will do occasional oil changes just because that's kind of expected when you take your car in to
Right.
maybe get tires, but it's not a primary business for them. Tires is their main business.
Okay.
Where do they store the old tires?
So they have, this one's what they consider a retail store, so they have an internal bullpen is what they call it. So they have the new tires stored inside above, but they also have an area where any of the waste tires, they temporarily hold those, and then they have a weekly pickup where it comes in and have those recycled.
And that's inside?
Correct.
Any other questions, comments? On the trash enclosure, that seems like a pretty wide spot. Do they expect a lot of, like a big receptacle back there?
No, it's just one, that area to the north or the west of the building there. It's kind of north is angled on the site plan, but it's basically for deliveries. So when they have trucks that come in and to either unload tires or load up recycled tires, it's part of the turning movement
Okay.
to allow that. So we can, they can have vehicles there and not essentially block traffic.
Okay. Typically, our trash enclosures are enclosed. Is that one enclosed?
Yes. This is
Okay.
So, I guess to piggyback off the trash enclosure, I mean, we're highly visible from the highway there. Any consideration adding a little additional landscaping around that trash enclosure to help mitigate any kind of negative impact that the trash enclosure would have from that viewscape?
Well, we do have the typical screening that goes up around this one, more like the material. We could look at doing some more landscaping. We do have the right-of-way landscaping we're providing along I-35 as well as on Watson Drive. But we can look at doing a little bit more landscaping there as well.
You never have too much landscaping. On Watson Drive, the landscape along there, looks like it's all deciduous trees. Any consideration to vary that deciduous and evergreen so we have year-round foliage?
Yeah, we can look at that. I think part of it was trying to consider the canopy and maybe the visibility of the building. There's some concern with some of it. If it spreads out too much, it might impede the visual there of the showroom and some of the signage, and make sure we don't block the monument sign, but I can look at
David, do we allow clustering of the street trees?
I'm sorry?
Do we allow clustering of the street trees?
Our code really doesn't, it just says points, and you try and tie your points, you have them along the frontage.
So the ability for them to say, instead of stretch them all out, we can cluster them in so they can still maintain.
Well, I think you also want to look at what you're planting, and if it's you don't want to get them close enough together that they
I'm
might
not saying
crowd each
on
other
top of each
out.
other, but I'm trying to find that happy medium between visibility for the business, but also high quality streetscape for the residents as well, so. I think that's about all I had for this. I have some comments for staff during roundtable, but
Like before we vote?
no,
Oh, just afterwards,
After.
on something else,
general comments.
general comments, okay. there aren't any other questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend the Board of Aldermen approve the Shops of Kearney Lot 3G site plan with conditions as recommended by staff.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. And then now just Shannon.
So,
Just-
I'll be brief, I promise. Architecturally, so, while I understand this particular project, I'm sure it meets all our architectural standards. That's why I didn't really bring it up during the public hearing. This is a highly visible street, highly visible off the highway corridor. It's, on that entrance into our community. This particular building is very flat walls, flat roof. There's no breaks vertically, horizontal. There's a couple offsets here and there. Really would like to see us elevate our architectural requirements, especially in these areas, right? This particular applicant, I can't hold his feet to the fire because this is what we require. So this is more, that's why I saved for a round table. It's more of a long-term increase of the quality, got some good looking buildings out there. If you Google Les Schwab tires and look at their Bozeman location, beautiful building, right? We got a good mix of architectural elements, architectural facade treatments. While this is, it broke up with colors, it's still a concrete building. So we do have good texture in there, but I think we have a higher standard, and I think our residents want that higher standard. So that's all.
It does kind of match with if you go back to the planning, future vision planning thing, there was a lot of that sort of discussion on here, so.
And I know to piggyback off of your comment, I know you and I have had conversations about overlay districts, municipality not too far from his, that I worked at, it was very common to have overlay districts in an area along Watson Drive, just to get that architectural up a little farther because it's so visible. So that might be something that we should.
Well, it is also, and I think it's one of the board priorities.
It is.
Also is, we'll be bringing in an ordinance later this year related to, commercial and industrial building facade improvements. So that is something that we'll be working on.
Sweet. Let's do that.
We talked about that.
I don't dive into incentives very much. Do we offer incentives in this area? Tax abatement, any kind of financial incentives?
It's in the TIF district, an existing TIF district.
And TIF covers what again? Just public improvements?
Public improvements.
For, say, tax abatement or anything like that, we don't offer anything for commercial. What I'm getting at is if we offer stuff aside from a TIF, which only covers the public improvement side of things, if stuff that would help offset development for the developer, I would definitely strongly suggest, highly recommend, demand higher quality materials, higher quality architecture. If you are given something, we want something in return, definitely, not just development. I want good development. Right? So if I'm, this is Board of Aldermen, I don't make decisions on tax incentives, but they watch these meetings, so.
They're so lucky.
That's all.
Anything else for the good of the order? I'd entertain a motion to dismiss.
I make a motion to go home.
Second.
We're not gonna even discuss it. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?